Master B2B Mythbusters, where we take a perception in B2B e-commerce and we put a industry expert on the hot seat that you just saw, put industry expert on the hot seat to find out if it's a truth or if it's a myth. My name is Brian Beck. I'm joined today by Andy Hoar. Andy is my partner at Master B2B. He is a longtime industry expert, 20 years, more than 20 years, Andy, right, in this field. He led e-commerce and B2B for Forrester Research. He's a CEO of Paradigm B2B, a thought leader on speed dial with CEOs all over the world. Does that exist anymore, speed dial? I don't think so. Anyway, Andy, good to be here with you today on a Mythbusters session.
It's actually been a while since we've introduced ourselves. We'll probably be introducing each other at our funerals. We
might be.
But for those of you who don't know Brian is a 17-year industry veteran. He worked in as a practitioner on the B2B side with Harbor Freight Tools, on the B2C side with PacSun. He was with a systems integrator. He's written a book called $1 Billion B2B E-commerce. And in his spare time, he's also managing partner for the company called Inceva, which helps B2B companies sell more effectively on Amazon. So Brian,
yes,
great to be here. Can't wait to jump in. This is a great topic.
Yeah, this is a great topic. We're going to be talking about the C-suite digital experience. Before we do that, folks, as with all of our sessions, we want to hear from you. Use the chat function to add questions into this. And this will be also available via playback and on demand, so you can also listen to this session after the fact. So please, we want to hear from you. And we'll also be, at the end of this, we'll be putting this question to the vote, so you can vote on whether our special guest has busted the myth or not. And today, Andy, the topic, myth or reality, the C-suite must have digital experience for e-commerce to be successful in B2B. And Andy, I was looking at the people joining us. I mean, this topic is huge. It's really hot and important. We've got folks like Matt Swan's here from A Southern, BASF, SHI's here, Dave Venning, Sofidel's here, Derek Defoe, Zebra, Jordan Blake's here, Keysight Technologies, Traffic Safety Warehouse, Jamin, Stephen Jawor's here from Schneider. And this is a great group, and it's an important topic, right? As we think about what the implications are here. And we have some examples we're going to share, Andy. So why don't we jump into just setting the stage a little bit? I think we have a couple slides here. You want to set the stage up for us for this question?
Yeah, there's actually been some research done around this. We've presented this before, and it's so compelling, I wanted to come back to it. So MIT Sloan Management Review 2 years ago published some research and said that large enterprises with digitally savvy executive teams outperform comparable teams without such digital savviness by more than 48% based on revenue growth and valuation. That implies that you need to have people with digital experience in the C-suite. Let's take this down from the abstract to something more concrete. So we wanted to take a look at two companies that have different approaches to this.
Sure.
One, first up, is Grainger. Now, we've showed this one before. We updated it because, in fact, it's changed a little bit. Mm-hmm. So on the next slide, you'll see that Grainger actually has 12 executives here in the C-suite. And the ones in the red squares here, so 6 of them have significant digital experience. So that's half, which is up from 4. So, it was about a third to 40% last time. Now it's 50%. So it continues to grow. And this is a company with $15 billion or so in total revenue, 10 billion of which is online. So simple math, it's about 2/3 of their revenue is online.
Incredible.
Hard to believe that there isn't a connection between the digital savviness and the experience of the C-suite and the fact that the digital penetration rate is so high. Now, different model, but in contrast, Fastenal has a different approach. They tend to hire from within, and they've built their digital organization more organically. They haven't brought in people from the outside with digital experience. And what you see here is basically of the 10 people I've listed here, not really any of them have significant digital experience. Now, despite that, and by the way, Anthony Barisma is somebody who joined recently, or somebody who's been with the company for a while, but recently inherited the digital chief digital officer, the digital remit for his in his role. But again, he doesn't have significant digital experience. They have people here who built this from the ground up, but their digital penetration rate, $1 billion, nothing to sneeze at, out of 7 billion is about 15-16%.
Right.
So again, it's a snapshot here, but Grainger, 50% of the people have digital experience, 67% digital penetration rate. Really nobody at Fastenal has significant digital experience in the C-suite, and they're at 15% digital penetration rate. So again, snapshot here, but in different approaches, but hard to believe that there's a correlation here between those two things.
Right. So you and I think, Andy, that the C-suite must have digital experience within it for a company to be successful in B2B e-commerce, but not everyone agrees with us, which is a good thing, right? Because that's where we get to the best conclusions, when we have people that disagree. So we need to find out who we have on our hot seat today. So let's go and figure it out. Oh my, that's pretty hot. Did we scare you off with the hot seat? Are you wearing a neoprene suit?
I'll come back for more punishment.
All right. Well, Tom is with commercetools. He's a senior director of customer value at commercetools. He has been a guest on our Mythbusters before. We've given him a name, Tom the Jouster Jones, because he's going to joust with us today. And Tom's been in this industry for a long time. Well, welcome, first of all, to the Mythbusters session.
Thanks for having me again. I wish I could say it's a pleasure to be back, but I know this can get quite hot, so we'll see how it goes.
That's right. Okay. Well, we're going to jump right into this and start asking you questions. Andy, I think you have the first question, sir.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to give you a chance. You saw our slide at the beginning. Any comment on the stat?
Yeah, I was told about that MIT study as well, and I think how they define that digital savvy is key, right? It was not that they have direct experience. I believe it was that they are focused and understand the importance of going digital and are willing to show that leadership and make it a priority in terms of their time and their budget.
Using our own info against us there, Tom. Well done.
Grainger too, I would add, that didn't happen overnight, right? This is a process, not an event. These are sometimes long journeys. And you yourself just said they hired these people over time and have increased their digital experience on this path to their tremendous growth. So,
okay.
Fair enough. It's begun. All right. So first question. Despite all that, though, you have to agree that, if somebody has to have digital experience in order to have credibility with an organization to make a big transformational change from analog to digital. I mean, how can a C-suite get up in front of the organization and say, we got to make these significant changes, to people, personnel, technology, et cetera. But I've never done it before.
Yeah. Like you, I've talked to a lot of B2B companies, and I think often of companies that are like 100-year-old company, family owned. I personally believe a company like that is going to respond more to the tenured people who have been running this business in terms of them showing the leadership and the commitment to make the digital change than some newcomer that comes in. I think they can be successful by bringing in digital expertise to help lead the process. But I think the C-suite themselves at the start of their journey do not need to have that experience.
But you and I both know that this is going to require making some tough calls. I think of the example of the sales team who's used to one way of selling, arguably, in person, handshake. They don't think digital is a great thing for their personal business, right? They think it's going to cannibalize them. It's a threat. In some cases, they believe it's existential. So, if the C-suite says, hey, we got to do this anyway, wouldn't you, if you're the sales guys, say, look, what do you mean this? We haven't done this before. You've never done this before. How do you know it's going to work?
Yeah. Well, I think where we probably agree is I think the C-suite, and particularly the CEO, has to be committed to it, right? They have to be involved and they have to be pushing for it. They have to be there to break those political logjams that we've all seen happen. And the sales are usually the most resistant. And again, I think if this is an evolution and a process where they're combining the knowledge of the longtime owners or executives with some digital newcomers and the people within the organization that are already showing that aptitude and interest, then they can balance that. Because look, they're going from zero. They don't want to suddenly make a shift and put the core business at risk while they make that transition to digital, especially in the beginning stages. So they need to take those, take the process one step at a time. And I think going from stage 1 to stage 2 in your digital maturity model, right, you can achieve a lot. Like you think of Goresh, the silencer at Dawn Foods. He helped take that business from, I believe, nothing to, was it 50% or 25% or 50% of their online sales. And they're still really relatively immature, at least on the master B2B digital maturity model, right? But they were able to achieve a lot by bringing someone in that had that expertise.
But isn't it almost theoretical though, Tom, when you think about experience? Like you're saying, fine, okay, C-suite is committed to it, but isn't it better or necessary to have the experience of having gone down the path? Take the sales team example and the fear and really it's about fear, right? A lot of this is about the unknown. It's about fear. So isn't it necessary to have that experience in the C-suite? Listen, I was down this path with this other company. Take somebody from Grainger who goes to a different company. I've been down this path. I've done this. This is what happens. Sales team. So you think about alignment of the different teams, whether it's fulfillment or sales or marketing or finance or anything really, isn't that experience necessary? Right? Isn't Grainger where it is because they brought in the outside experience?
Yeah, I'm not arguing that it's not helpful, that it's not beneficial to a company. I'm arguing that it's not absolutely necessary for them to make progress on their journey to embrace e-commerce.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, before we move to the next question, I will agree with you on one thing, Tom. The CEO has got to be committed to this for sure. If they're not committed to this, I don't care how much experience they have. It's not going to work.
It's going to fail.
That does supersede that. I would agree on that front.
So okay, let's change gears a little bit here, guys. So another question for you, Tom. Doesn't digital experience better enable the C-suite know what to really prioritize in all this? I mean, if you don't have digital experience, there's so much you can be doing. You got all this noise out there with AI and, all kinds of other things going on. Isn't it necessary to have that experience in the C-suite to guide the organization in prioritizing efforts?
Yeah, I think it can help, but again, it's not necessary. I've seen a lot of examples of companies, again, where they bring in someone at a lower level or mid-level to start this process, who bring in the expertise. The key point is that C-suite and that CEO have to bring this person in. They have to support them. They have to be behind them, and they have to be actively involved in this process. Like commercetools customer Tecton Tools, two brothers are the co-CEOs, I believe, and they came from relative technical immaturity, but they just dove in completely into the process and have had a quite amazing success with that.
So what did they?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, what did they have? So okay, fine. Let's give you some credit on that one. What do they have around them? Like, how did they hire? What kinds of? I mean, how did they succeed? They don't know anything.
Yeah. Well, I'll take another example. Ergodyne is an example, not a commercetools customer. I believe Teresa.
Yeah, I know Teresa well. Mm-hmm,
right.
Yep.
It's a small family-owned business. I think 100 years old, or it was an old business. She's only at the director level, but it's a small enough business that they're able to collaborate. They trust her. They're listening to her. And again, it's a process. Grainger did not have 6 executives with digital experience when they started this process, right? In the early stages of their maturity and their process, they got the low-hanging fruit. They started getting some efficiencies and starting seeing new revenue or whatever their goals were. But that evolution takes time, right? It's a journey. It's not a destination necessarily. It's a constant process to improve and move to the digital front.
Well, knowing Teresa, she might as well be in the C-suite. I mean, she has a lot of seriously, she has a lot of visibility into the top level of that organization. Yeah. And she's reporting to they're owned by Client Tools now, but when they were an independent, and she's reporting right to the CEO. I mean, I believe. So it's almost as though she's in the C-suite. So don't buy that one. I don't buy that one.
So here's my question though. If you don't have any digital experience, then how do you know what good is? How do you know in terms of hiring talent?
Right.
How do you know what's going to work and what's not going to work? Who the pretenders are, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone is in their own private lives are shopping online, understand what a good customer experience is. This will be a controversial to say probably, other than the data and the AI part, which is really, really hard, the rest of it's not necessarily rocket science. And there's pretty well understood technologies and approaches to get this done. The real challenge comes with the organizational change management. Like, how do you get your organization to move along with you? How do you get the culture to embrace it? So I think that's where the real challenge
Tom,
is.
isn't that why you need it in the C-suite? I mean, if you don't have it in the C-suite, there's not an understanding. You're just going to go back to doing business as you've always done it because business is good enough. We grew 3% last year. We're making decent margin. We don't have to disrupt the organization.
Right. Well, those businesses are not going to be around in a number of years. So what I'm talking about is the businesses where the C-suite, whether they have the experience or not, recognizes the importance of e-commerce and makes that commitment to do so. Whether they have the experience is different than whether they recognize the importance of doing that and bringing in the right people.
So I thought you might actually throw one in our face for football fans out there. The Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, quarterback of the 49ers, who was the last pick in the draft and probably will be the MVP of the NFL this year. Right. Everybody missed him. So you might say, look, these people who think they've got it all nailed and they bring in the smartest, best people, miss talent, right? I thought you might say that.
Right. That's interesting.
That was the case with Tom Brady too, but
right. That's exactly right. Yeah, no, it's fascinating when you think about like the organization and so I think what we're saying is there has to be someone in the C-suite or a group of people that have some experience with this. You think about it, even the impact digital has on other channels. I've seen too many traditional folks who don't have any digital experience, Tom, come and say, at the C level say, well, this is just about incremental revenue. This, show me the incremental revenue. I'm not going to invest in this unless you can make a business case that shows in isolation e-commerce works on its own. If you don't have experience with digital and understanding how it crosses all of these different channels and impacts efficiencies and cost to serve and customer, my favorite is share of wallet. How do you, if you don't have that experience, how do you overcome those arguments? You're going to run up into a wall, right?
And I'm with you. I don't agree with that argument that it's just about incremental revenue. Customer retention probably being the most important, right? Over time, they're going to lose their customers.
It's a big one.
Yeah, switch.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah, but again, I'm not arguing that it's not useful to have that experience. But a lot of these B2B businesses I've talked to, right? Their existing C-suite does not have that experience, right? But they're making the commitment to set off on this journey. Okay. They're bringing in some expertise to help them along that journey. So it's just the recognition of that.
You're drawing a distinction between the need for and the recognition that that's necessary, right? So the need for the experience versus a C-suite that says we've got to do this and we're going to listen to people. So it's almost it's an interesting distinction you're drawing because I can point out 20, 30, 40, 50 companies where the C-suite is still stuck, probably hundreds of companies. The C-suite is still stuck in this old way of thinking and they're just not listening. And we hear it from the directors of e-com, the VPs of e-com who aren't in the C-suite, who are saying, I can't get the business unit leads on board. I can't get the C-suite on board. The fulfillment team won't allocate inventory to me for e-commerce because it's because it goes to the big customer they've had for 6,000 years first. It's all these, before even if the e-com order is taken first. I mean, this inventory allocations. I mean, it's just like this whole disruption thing. And what's interesting is you're drawing a distinction between that and so what do you find at commercetools? You guys work with hundreds of companies, right? I mean, you help them with these digital transformations. What is the commonality in that C-suite if they don't have digital experience that allows it to be successful?
Yeah, I think it's that commitment, the recognition of its importance. Someone has to take that leadership position and push it through. Interestingly, think of Zorro or some other customers that technically had digital experience, but it was sort of outdated with legacy systems, and they still had to bring in people with the latest knowledge to move their business forward. Okay.
And what do you hear from those C-suites when how do you know, as commercetools walking in, how do you know that this is a company that's ready at the C-suite level? Aside from their digital experience, how do you know that they're ready? What do they tell you? Or just the fact that you're there, is that enough?
Yeah, if we're at the table, that's a good sign, but not always, right? Not always, because it's could be IT led where they want to go down this
Sure.
path, or they're fascinated with the shiny new technology, but that doesn't necessarily mean the C-suite's on board.
Right.
But honestly, that is part of our qualification process, because we don't believe someone's going to be successful unless the business is aligned behind the initiative.
Okay. Andy, I think you've got a question about voice of customer here.
Well, I do, because I mean, we can agree or disagree on what we just talked about, but at the end of the day, the most important thing, bar none, is that C-suite understands the voice of the digital first customer. And we just don't live in a world anymore where it's an offline driven experience. It's mostly online driven. It can, in many cases, be hybrid, especially in B2B, but it starts with people learning about things online, and it may end with them buying online, but at least it starts online. How do you grapple with a company where maybe even the C-suite doesn't even buy stuff online? They still think everything has to be done with a handshake and a smile and an in-person meeting. How do you move that organization over to understanding what a digital first customer experience even looks like?
Yeah, again, I hope I'm not repeating myself too much, but it feels like, or it seems to me, they if they don't have that experience, right, they have to bring some of that expertise in. And there's always people agitating within the business who are usually the ones closest to the customers who want to move things towards digital. And speaking of the voice of the customer, I think there's still a good balance to be made between the people who have been running the business for a long time and know their customers and know their products, to balance that with someone who's being acting as the voice of the digital customer, so that they can make that transition without damaging their core business as they make that transition.
And Tom, as we think about, so you're talking about a balance of digital and traditional experience. When we think about, the traditional executive who understand, traditional meaning they don't have digital experience, traditional doesn't, they just haven't worked in the digital side. What if they have that kind of recognition that they have to digitally evolve the organization? What benefits do you think that traditional experience would bring to the digital transformation or e-commerce effort?
Yeah, I think they're people that are going to know their customers the best, be most aware of maybe some of the pains and the challenges that they're facing every day. But they need to balance that with the voice of the digital customer, because there may be whole new markets or customers that are available to them that weren't available to them before. So that I think that balance between that traditional long-term understanding of the business can be better than if suddenly a new CEO is brought in, let's say, with digital experience, who's hyper focused on digital. And maybe moves too fast. Maybe that's not a good thing to say, but maybe moves too fast and causes harm to the business.
Yeah, what do you think those digital executives might miss? Let's say, I don't know, Jeff Bezos goes to run Grainger. It's just an extreme example, but I'm joking in some ways. But what if taking someone like that, or the fellow who ran Walmart, Andy, who was that, or there was whatever his name is. Anyway, someone from a traditional e-com, pure play e-com business going in to run a, I don't know, Fastenal or MSC or whatever. Is there something they might miss?
Yeah, I think very likely. And I think it's important, no matter how experienced someone is in digital, when they come in, that they have to do their own due diligence within that business. They have to interview customers, interview salespeople, interview customer service people, and come to their own conclusions, and not come with too many preconceived notions, so that they can, I think, really tap into where they should start in terms of what they should prioritize.
Right. But you don't think that experience is necessary. In fact, it sounds like you're arguing that it could actually work against the business, because they don't maybe understand the traditional business as well.
Yeah, I think if it's all one or all the other extreme, that could cause harm. Whereas a balance in the early stages could be more productive.
Yep.
Well, let's see what the audience has to say about it, Brian.
Let's do that. Let's go ahead and post the poll question. Now, the C-suite must have digital experience for B2B e-commerce to be successul.
I think the key here is the word must. We all know it's nice to, but do you think they must have this experience? If you say no, that means you agree with Tom. If you say yes, that means you agree with us. Either one of us can be right, but it's an interesting question for sure.
Yeah. No, it really is. And I think, to me, there's got to be somebody in the C-suite that has this, at least one person. And you and I have talked about the chief digital officer and all that. But Tom, any kind of final words as we wrap up here in terms of your argument to get your final word in to convince folks that you're right?
Depends how many have voted so far.
Right.
Yeah, I just think this is important for every business today. I think we all agree on that the ones who do not go on this journey are going to have problems, serious problems, if they even exist in 5 years. But to get there, the important thing is to start, and that they have, they probably have people within their organization that can start to lead, and then they can bring in experts from outside to start them down this journey, because it's not going to happen overnight, but they need to get started.
So I will say one thing in support of what Tom said, because I think you made two interesting points that I hadn't considered when we started this discussion. One is that I think it's a critical component of the C-suite that they be humble. There has to be humility about this, that they don't maybe understand everything that's happening. I've met some very digitally savvy people who are not very humble. And frankly, they're probably going to be less successful than the ones who aren't digitally savvy, but recognize
That's a good point.
and concede that we need to bring in some people with expertise and defer to those folks. The other thing is, you made an interesting point, Tom, about people agitating from the bottom. It is we focused here about the C-suite having digital savviness, but it's also possible that a C-suite could galvanize the agitators and have bottom up as well as top down. And it's possible that a very digitally savvy CEO wouldn't waste his or her time with a bottom up approach and ignore that. So there are some blind sides here for both sides that are worth considering.
You're talking about a mutiny, Mr. Hoar.
Well, I'm by definition agitator. So
that's right. That's right. Well, Tom, thank you very much. We got a couple quick announcements here. I'm going to reveal the poll results. So, Tom, thank you for your participation today. You've been made some good arguments. Let's see what the audience had to say, Gabe. If we have that ready, let's take a look and see if he busted the myth. Oh, Tom did not bust the myth.
No, he did.
Wait a minute. Did I always get this wrong?
You always read this backwards.
I always get this backwards. No, myth is busted. Okay.
According to the audience, he busts the myth.
Yes,
and I think the key word here is must.
Right.
If we'd said, hey, would it be nice? The answer would be overwhelming yes. But the question is must. And that is a good question.
No.
Because some organizations are trying to figure this out. Do we have to have people in the C-suite, or can we hire that, bring it in, and concede that we have people who can do this better than us? So congratulations.
Tom the Jouster Jones is 2-0. Well done, Tom. Whatever I say first, I'm always wrong on the votes. For some reason, I always read them wrong. Andy, any final words before we wrap up?
Yes, the next time I see you, Brian, it's going to be 2024. So you're going to be a year older, as they always say.
That's right. So happy holidays, everyone. Enjoy your holiday. We'll see you in January 2024. Take care, folks.
Happy New Year.